what made the story Raising the Sun such a impactful event for you?
Well, it was the character Walter Lee. Walter Lee was the son, and Walter Lee had these dreams, and I could relate to that. He had these dreams, but he felt like as a black man, he was held back from achieving those dreams, and he had this drive, and I could really relate to that. That character was so well written that at the age of, I think I read it when I was about 14, 15, something like that, I could relate to it. And now, even at age, I'm 59 now, and I can still relate to that character.
Interesting.
That's how powerful that character was, and how well it was written by Lorraine Hansberry.
Welcome to tonight's premiere episode of the Writer's Spotlight. The Writer's Spotlight is a program that focuses and celebrates writers from around the world and around the country. We celebrate authors and writers because they are the creative backbone for many industries, not just for entertainment. Writers are needed for content in the creation of school textbooks. Writers are needed for the creation of commercials and ads, as well as script writing, movies, film, TV, and radio. Tonight, we are celebrating the contributions of a great author by the name of Kola Anthony Scott II. And so welcome and enjoy yourself to the Writer's Spotlight. Welcome to tonight's premiere episode of the Writer's Spotlight. Tonight we have Presley Giles Jr. He is a very creative author who wrote some very insightful and intellectual articles in his novel called Pieces of Life. Presley, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
And tell me, why is your name not on the book? Why is Kola Anthony Scott II credited for writing the book?
Well, yes, I wrote the book, Presley Giles, but when I got ready and I sent it to the publishers, and they looked everything over and everything, they were worried about some legal issues, and they strongly suggested that I use a pen name instead of my full name, my real name.
All right.
And so that's what I did.
Oh, okay. All right. And what made you decide to write this book? What was in your life that wanted you to decide to write down these stories?
Well, I had these pieces, many of the pieces, I'd had them for a long time, for many years, and I kept them in a little notebook, and it was old, and it was faded, and it was wet, and it was stained,
yes.
and,
Right.
and everything. And so one of the things I decided was that as I was getting older is that I decided I wanted to do something with those writings.
Okay.
And so I chose a few of them and I put them in the book.
And these stories are from actual life in your childhood while you're growing up?
Some of them, yes. Some of them are actual. It's part memoir and part, pieces that I've actually, fictional pieces that I've actually written.
Okay.
And so some of them, the memoir part is true stories from my childhood and growing up, and some of my adult life. And the pieces are nice, as we're going to see tonight. In some of the pieces that I have my actor friends are going to be presenting. They're fun. Some of them are fun, entertaining. Some of them are hard and heavy. Some of them really challenge your soul.
Thought-provoking.
Yeah, thought-provoking, challenge your soul.
Well, I'm intrigued. So let's take a look at some of these selections from Pieces of Life.
Wisdom came to me slowly. Year after year she crept into my bed. She taught me just enough to save my life. When I denied her teaching, she did not deny me. She waited, hiding in my ignorance. She waited, hiding in my fears. Yet, wisdom came to me slowly. Kola Anthony Scott II.
What would you like?
Let me give you. I know we got things to do.
Okay.
I know. I do understand. We're gonna give you one more tape, and make it yours.
Okay.
This is your showcase.
Okay. Yes.
This is what you want people to see you.
I saw an angel tonight. She said she was mine. She wasn't pretty like other angels. She was all bruised and beaten up. Her hair was ragged, and in some places she had none. Her smell was far from sweet. She spoke with a terrible stammer. I'm here for you. I've always been here for you. Through every emotional battle, through every denial, every moment of doubt, every fear, every truth you would not accept, every love you pushed away, I've been here. Every time you cried or laughed or smiled, I cried too on your behalf. I was there. For every blessing you neglected, I prayed on your behalf. I was there. I'm here, and I will remain here until you are ready.
That was good.
Okay. All right, then let's just leave it at that.
good?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, it had more emphasis. You wanted emphasis.
Okay.
Okay.
One more time.
Presley, take 2 in 5, 4, 3, 2.
It was 1993 when the hotel owner hired me to manage the overnight shift of his New York hotel. He warned me that there would not be much activity during these hours. He left me with 2 pieces of advice. Piece of advice number 1 was because I had to perform the overnight audits, he wanted me to double and triple check my accounting. Piece of advice number 2 was to always respond to room number 619. He instructed me, if room number 619 calls, to lock the register, set the phones to voicemail, and lock the front door to all non-residents. And go directly to room number 619 and do whatever they asked me to do. I promised him I would. 2 weeks had gone by. I still had not heard anything from room number 619. Finally, one night, I get a phone call. It was room number 619. It was an elderly voice, and she spoke in a frantic whisper. She says, please, I need your help. They're in my room. I ask, who's in your room? She says, the little mad men. They're in my room. They're yelling and screaming at me, and they're calling me names. They're banging on the walls, and they're stomping on the floors. They're going to wake up the other tenants. And I told her I would be right there. I followed the instructions that the hotel owner had given me, and I went directly to room number 619. Going up in the elevator, I thought to myself, hey, why did I drop out of that Taekwondo class? I could use them right now. But when I got to the floor, I couldn't help but notice how quiet everything was. And when I got to her room, I put my ear against the door to see if I could hear any sounds of corruption. Silence. So I knocked on the door, and this little voice says, who's there? And I said, it's the front desk manager. She opened the door slightly just to confirm it was me. And then she closed the door, took the chain off the door, and let me in. As soon as I got in, I recognized her immediately. Her name was Miss Reno. Though we had never been formally introduced, I'd seen her in the lobby many times. She was always a happy person, glowing smiles for everyone. somewhere, I guess you'd say, between the age, somewhere in her late 70s, early 80s. And she only stood about 5 feet tall. She had snow white hair and the bluest eyes I'd ever seen on any person of any age. But it was easy to see she had been crying. She says, there's so many of them, they're all over the place. And I looked at her and I could see that she was genuinely frightened. She was standing in the corner of the room. She was wearing this long, pink, towel-like robe, and she was clutching it together with both hands. She was clutching it so tight, you could see the whites of her knuckles. And she was shaking, just shaking in fear. As I looked around her totally immaculate room, I said, Miss Reno, there's no one here. She says, don't tell me you can't see them. You've got to see them. There's so many of them. Just please, just get them out of here, please. I didn't know what to do. I looked at her. This woman was absolutely terrified. I didn't know how to handle this. So I just started shooing the little mad men like they were chickens on a farm. I started out very slow, and then I became more aggressive, and then I became more and more aggressive. As I became even more aggressive, some of the little mad men began to rush in Miss Reno's direction. Miss Reno started stomping and kicking at the little mad men, and then she opened the door so the little mad men could run out that way. I rushed over and opened the window so more little mad men could run out that way. Miss Reno screams, under the bed, there are more hiding under the bed. I rushed over, got down on the floor, and I shooed the little mad men from under Miss Reno's bed and out the window. When I looked back at Miss Reno, I noticed she had relaxed. And I asked, do you see any more? She says, no, I think we got them all. Then as she was wiping the remaining tears from her eyes, she slowly walked over and she sat on the foot of her bed. She says, they're just so vulgar. I stood there looking like Superman, daring any of the little mad men to show their faces while I was in the room. Da-da-da-da! Miss Reno and I went straight up tall on those little mad men. Miss Reno looked up at me. She says, thank you. And then she says, would you like some tea and cookies? My not being quite sure if I should leave her alone just yet, answered, yes, ma'am, that would be nice. Thank you. That early morning, Miss Reno and I had tea and cookies, and talked about everything but little mad men. From then on, whenever I would see Miss Reno in the lobby, she was her usual gracious self. Broad smiles for everyone. But about every 2 weeks, I would get a phone call from room number 619, asking me to help her shoo the little mad men away from her room. I never felt it was my place to question Miss Reno about her condition. To me, she was just Miss Reno, and she became one of my very best friends. I miss you, Miss Reno.
And cut. All right, what you think?
The first grade. It was the
Chuck.
class.
Chuck. Oh, I'm sorry. What? We're gonna do Chuck. And 5.
Hold on.
Stop.
When you-
Cut.
When you get to the part of the name, the name.
Okay.
Chuck. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Chuck, man. So the day I started first grade, there was this boy in my class named Chuck, right? Now, Chuck was a big boy. It looked like he'd been in first grade about 2-3 times, man. No, but I'm talking about Chuck been in first grade so long, he had a mustache. No. But really. Chuck had been in first grade so long, his voice had changed. Now, I'm serious. His voice had changed. When he would read in class, he sounded like this. Puff, where is you? To which, in a soft and patient voice, my teacher would say, no, Charles, that's Puff, Puff, where are you? To which Chuck will reply, I'm sorry, Miss Davis. I got mixed up. Puff, Puff, whoa. Okay, Puff, Puff, where are you? Chuck was a big old farm boy, and quite often the family farm was more important than Chuck's education. You understand what I'm saying, right? Anyways, getting to and from class, there was this ditch, right? We all had to cross over the ditch. It was filled with muddy water, green slime, mosquitoes, turtles, snakes, God knows what else. Chuck thought it would be amusing to push fellow students into this filthy, disgusting ditch. So every day after school, Chuck would select somebody to push into the ditch. Because he was so big, no one dared to say or do anything about it. But me, I did my best to avoid as much as I could. But one day I heard Chuck and his friends coming behind me. As they got closer, I walked faster. Now I'm ready to run, but too late. They threw me into this ditch. Woo, they laughed and moved on. As I stood up from the water, my once freshly starched and iron clothes soaking wet. My shiny shoes were packed with mud, and then when I got home, my grandmother whooped me for getting my clothes dirty. When my teenage uncle got home, he asked me what happened. I told him Chuck threw me in the ditch. My uncle's 14 years old. He said, man, you don't never let nobody treat you like that, cut. You're gonna have to learn how to fight. Next time, if you don't kick Chuck's butt, I'ma kick your butt. Nah, I truly looked up to my uncle. I really did. I was not about to let him down. Now, Chuck had moved on to other prey momentarily. He was pushing male student after male student into the ditch, but Chuck didn't push girls into the ditch like he had some sort of gentleman's code or something. Man, get out of here, brother. Anyway, one day, I hear Chuck and his friends coming up behind me again. Boy, I thought about what my uncle said, so I braced myself, right? Chuck got closer, got ready to push me in the ditch. I turned around, closed my eyes, started swinging. Chuck and his friends started laughing, right? But somehow, some way, one of them swings hit Chuck upside his head. Boop! Then there was silence. Woof. When I opened my eyes, all I see is Chuck's fist coming at me. I went numb. I felt nothing. But then I began to taste blood as it dripped down from my nose, down my upper lip, into my mouth. Then Chuck kept pounding on me. Then he tried to throw me to the ditch. Hold on. I see my uncle cheering for me. I see a crowd starting to build around me. I am not finna go in this ditch. Woo, I swear to him. Woo, woo, woo. With my uncle watching, I fought harder. This time, I kept my eyes open, making sure every punch landing, delivering punch after punch as Chuck delivered punch after punch. Now, I want to tell you that I whooped Chuck's butt, but that would be an outlandish lie, man. You see, as a matter of fact, my uncle had to pull Chuck up off me. He told Chuck to stop, shut up, and go home. He helped me get up off the ground, took my shirt tail, wiped the blood, sweat, and tears off of my face, and walking home, my uncle put his arm over my shoulder and started laughing. He said, you got your little butt kicked today, cuz, but you know what? You won. I looked up, and he said, you fought back, right? You didn't let him throw you in that ditch, right? Then you won. So, we get home. My uncle weaved this tale about how I, Kola Anthony Scott II, defended myself against a boy twice my size. Ooh, my grandparents were so impressed. That day, my grandmother did not whoop me for getting my clothes dirty. And in that very same day, my grandfather, after a hard day's work, got out of his chair, walked into the kitchen, scooped me a big old bowl of chocolate ice cream, that's my favorite ice cream, and brought it to me. Boy, life was good. Sometimes life can be a little bit like Chuck. No, you know what? Life can be just like Chuck. For nothing else than its own amusement, life will come along and try to throw you into some ditch. And you gotta be ready to fight back. I mean, you may not always win. You may come out with some bumps and bruises, But life demands that you give it all you got, so you better be ready to fight, because if you don't kick life's butt, life gonna kick your butt.
Because of you were at the age of 14 and 15,
Mm-hmm.
you read a book and you liked the character Walter so much, it inspired you to become a writer, to create stories of your own.
Well, yeah, but that really wasn't the only thing that did it. It wasn't until much later. I didn't really get totally involved in writing until I read people like Edward Albee, Eric Bogosian, Everett Leroy Jones, because they wrote these characters that were just flawed. They were just beautifully flawed, and they would write these monologues that would just go right through you, and that just thrilled me, and I wanted to be able to write like that. And so that was your inspiration. That was the inspiration right there. When I read those pieces, I knew that's what I wanted to be
do in life. From reading those pieces.
From reading those pieces.
Oh, okay. And when did you first do your first story? When did you do your first writing? How old were you, and what was the circumstance?
The first story I wrote was, I think I must have been about 9, maybe 10, somewhere like that.
Mm-hmm. What was the story about?
The story was about a car accident. You know, and I wrote it out, and it wasn't. I just remember the teacher, and I didn't get a lot of compliments in school, but I remember the teacher telling me that I was very imaginative.
That's very good.
Yeah, that's like it was the first
encouragement you needed from that teacher.
Just that one line was like,
one line encouraged you.
Said, hey, I am creative. I can.
Really?
That might be something that you know.
And then, so as you grew and went to college, I understand you dabbled in theater and the arts as a director.
I've been an actor. I've been a writer, director, producer in theater. I majored in theater arts. I went to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York, and that's kind of too how I got my start. And another way I got my start in writing is I started writing actor monologues for actors.
Yes.
I had a small theater company. I had friends that graduated with me. My friends, you know, when we graduated, they went on to have big roles and parts and things like that in commercials and television and everything, and I was just getting absolutely positively nowhere, you know. And so, but I started doing like corporate showcases, you know, talent showcases, and I started doing pretty well. And we would have people that would come in that wanted to be an actor. They were novice actors or whatever, but sometimes they wouldn't even know what a monologue was, you know, for an audition monologue or whatever. And so I would write them something, and I would say, they would talk to them, and I would write them a little monologue, and then they would do it for the show.
Oh, okay. So is writing therapeutic for you?
Very much so. The book, Pieces of Life, Memoir and Selected Works, is very, even the pieces that I created, it all has some kind of form of therapeutic, way of expressing myself.
Mm-hmm. Also, when you're writing your stories for your book, and you said you take some examples from real life, and the other examples you say you take from fiction, from using your imagination.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
More about the pieces that I did from imagination?
Yes.
Well, there's a piece called, but actually, when we get a little bit of the show, you actually do one of the pieces that is a fictional character that I created, fictional piece, called Conviction.
Conviction.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great.
And the piece is about a man who can't love.
Okay.
He doesn't understand love, and so because he doesn't understand love, he fears it, and he does this heinous act.
Okay, well, we'll have to tease the audience with a little bit about that.
You see it, yeah.
And we have some other selections. Well, why don't we just go to the selections right now?
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned, because Presley Giles will present some selections from the novel Pieces of Life.
Mm-hmm.
Nature is a beautiful thing, but even nature cannot always live up to man's expectations. So what is a mere human being like me supposed to do? Nature doesn't have time to check with man for his approval. Nature doesn't have time for man to gain a clear understanding. Nature makes her mark according to God's plan, and together they move on and on and on. Kola Anthony Scott II.
Babe. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I felt like I was about to sneeze. I'm so sorry.
Take 2 and 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Where have you been? You hear me talking to you? Answer me, damn it. Where have you been? You go out and you're gone for 3 days and I don't hear from you? No. You owe me an explanation. Look, I don't mean to get all on your case as soon as you walk through the door. It's just, when you are gone like that and I don't hear from you, I don't know. I get scared. I get worried. I don't know if you're alive or dead or what. You know, when we got married, you promised me so many things. No, I'm not complaining. No. You let me love you. And that was all I ever wanted, was to love you. I didn't need fancy jewelry. I don't need flowers. I don't need a Mercedes. I don't need a big house. You know, I get so lonely in here by myself. Sometimes I talk to the roaches. Sometimes I even talk to the mice. I need you. I need you to make love to me like you used to. You know, put your arms around me and hold me and whisper something nice in my ear, like, tell me your dreams. Tell me how happy we're gonna be someday. We can make love in those dreams. Babe, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. It's just, can you forgive me? Do you remember when you used to touch me right there? You could send shivers all through my body when you touch me. Babe, come here. I need you to make love to me. I am glad you're home. I am. It's just, I miss you when you're not here. Come here. Let me make you happy. Tonight we can forget about broken promises and and lost dreams. Tonight, we can build new dreams. Yeah. Come on, babe. I know what you need. See? I need it too. Yeah.
And cut.
That's great.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You don't get paper, huh? You don't get to keep the paper.
Okay. All
Just,
right.
just
Darn.
Just tell the story.
Okay, I got one. Okay. Okay, I got one. One night in a seemingly deserted bar, I told a stranger I would buy him a beer if he told me a story. The stranger said, "Sometimes in life, all you have left to tell is your story." I could tell he's had a few more beers than I thought he would. He said to me, "Let me tell you why I had to kill her. I had to kill her because she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. I had to kill her because she dared to love someone like me. I did everything I had done to other women I did to her. I lied to her. I cheated on her. I stole from her. I humiliated her and embarrassed her in front of her family and friends in public. I just had to prove to her that I did not deserve to be loved. But I could tell in her eyes she still loved me too. I got scared. I did not know what to do. I never ever fell in love. Love was an unknown territory to me. I fell in lust. Lust, oh yeah. My life was filled with lust and filth. I'm a connoisseur. I'm an expert on lust. But love, it's an unknown territory. The stranger looked down, and then he looked at me and said, that night when we slept together and I looked at her, I just looked at her beautiful face. I stared at her and looked at her for a long, long time. The woman that loved me, the most beautiful woman I ever seen in my life. And I picked up the pillow and I placed it on her face, and I struggled and suffocated her while she struggled and faded into death, hoping that her love for me would fade as well. In those long 13 years that I was in a prison cell, her love soothed me. And while I'm in that stinking cell for those 13 years, I grew to love her as well. The stranger looked down. He had a few more drinks and forced a smile and said, I guess it's a love story. What do you do to something like that? I don't know what to say. I don't know how to react. So I bought him another beer.
It sounds weird.
Cut. What?
The story is really weird.
It is strange, but I mean, that's what you wrote. I mean, the most beautiful woman he's ever seen, and he wants to kill her because she loved him?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Where did you get this idea from? Oh, yeah, you told me. All right. Okay, cut. Take two.
Okay.
Take two in In 5, 4, 3, 2.
Okay. I was 10 years old. It was a Saturday night, just like any other Saturday night on Front Street's last remaining beer tavern, right? The crowd was plenty. The music was loud. The dance floor was full. The beer was selling. I mean, the crowd was feeling good. I was looking for my parents, and I could not find them. I mean, the car was gone, so I asked my aunt and uncle where my mom was, and nobody knew. A few minutes later, their car drove up, but they parked way down the street, away from the tavern, which was unusual because we had a nice car, and usually they would park it where it could be seen. Now my stepfather stepped out of the vehicle and started walking towards the tavern, and my mother stayed inside the vehicle, which was also unusual. Now, as my stepfather got closer, I ran to him and I asked where they had been, and he did not answer. He headed directly inside the tavern. Now, when he opened the doors to the tavern, I was right beside him. The loud crowd hadn't even noticed him, and he cried out, "Where's that badass Sonny Walker?" And Mr. Walker was right near the front of the tavern with a woman on each side of him. He was wearing a white polo shirt, and with me right beside him, pow, 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 pow! The crowd rapidly scattered. I was stunned. I didn't even see the gun. My stepfather turned and ran out the back of the tavern. Many of the crowd chased him. I mean, they chased him down the street. When they finally caught up with him, one of them had a gear shift from the truck, and they beat my stepdaddy in the middle of the street. My mother never stepped out the car. The crowd was so crazy. My aunt ran up to me, told me to go to my grandmother's house, and the following reasons why I do not drink. My stepfather told me, man, the only thing he remembered is when he woke up, he was in jail. He was so drunk, he couldn't even remember what he did. He had almost killed a man, ruined his business, disrupted our already dysfunctional home, and gained the possibility of going to prison, and he couldn't even remember what he'd done. He did not even remember what the dispute was about. Also, Mr. Walker was right back at the very same table 2 weeks later. So whatever the dispute was about, it solved nothing. Listen, I do not drink.
The Disney replied, "Sometimes in life there is no moral to the story. Where too often our morality is lost in our struggle to survive. Sometimes in life there is no hero. Our true heroes are few and far between. Sometimes in life there is no deep philosophical journey. There's only our constant chase of hope. Sometimes in life our reward is just another day. Sometimes there's just life. It's just life. And life is a magnificent gift."
And so, what do you want the public to get from reading this novel, Pieces of Life?
Well, I think a lot of times we keep waiting on this pie in the sky. There's and sometimes life just doesn't happen like that. I want people to say, well, this is what life is. It's not always good. It's not perfect. There are those times when you're going to just slam into a wall and everything, and you have to step back and kind of rethink things and find a way to go around, over, or whatever that wall and get it done.
Yes,
But
yes.
that wall, sometimes it's going to be there. Those obstacles are going to be there. It's a part of life. You know what I'm saying? So I want people to be real about things, and that's what I tried to do with the book. I wanted to be real about things.
I see. And you're hoping that a reader who reads the book will be inspired to become a writer from reading your works, like you were inspired to become a writer from reading other authors' works. Is that correct?
Well, I'm you know what? I'm not going to say that because it's up to that person.
Uh-huh.
It's like, for me, it took me years to decide I was ready to do that.
Oh, I see.
Like I said, I carried that notebook around with me from city to city, places to places, and everything. I carried that around with me for years until I felt I was ready
I see.
to put that out
I
there.
see.
And make that my goal.
Okay. And this novel, which I read, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, I don't know, it very much contemplating certain aspects of life. And when I read, there were certain passages in the book that really struck home. And is there any plans to make this book into a motion picture or a television series?
I don't know as of yet.
Okay.
I'd love for that to happen. I'd love to see that happen.
Okay.
You know, of course. You know, I don't know. I'm just not sure yet. It's kind of early in the game yet.
Okay.
But, you know, I'd love to see that happen.
Oh, really? Okay.
The main thing I want is I would just love people to read my words.
That's what you'd like to come out from this.
I'd like for
The
people
outcome
to
would
read my
just
words.
people to read your words.
Yeah, because see, that's one of the things that I like about the pieces that I've done is that there are these awkward characters. There's this strange way of looking at life. There's a different way of looking at life. We're not all cookie, cutters, type. We don't have cookie cutter type lives.
Yes.
Everybody has a different type of life. And that's what I like. There are different characters in here that are just totally unique. There are different ways of looking at things at life and looking at things spiritually.
Yes.
There are different ways to look at things. And I'm hoping that I opened up some doors into hopefully a different way of thinking about things.
Well, let's take a look at some of what Presley has written.
Crash. Each of us has a good side and a bad side. Each of us daily express moments of good and evil. Each human is on a consistent scale somewhere between saint and sinner, somewhere between a lie and a truth. The majority of the time it's not even something we think about. It's just who we are. It's just how we survive. Kola Anthony Scott II.
If you like, we can do another cut if you like, or what do you think of that? What you think of that?
Are you asking me?
Yes. What you think of that?
I thought it went great.
We'll do one more if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't know.
We could do one more, but that was really, really good.
You want that green wall?
No, I don't. Take three in 5, 4, 3, 2.
I had never seen him look like that. He's always been tall, muscular, broad shoulders, chiseled features. He'd been a handsome man all his life, with a confidence as bright as his smile. But tonight he was a different man. I look at him here in my bed, his skin pale in color, his bloodshot eyes set on a single spot on the ceiling. His weak hands tremoring as he attempts to pull the covers closer to his face. His once bolting voice weakened in his efforts to take a single breath. He says, "I'm sorry for everything I have ever done to you. In our 30 years of marriage, I'd never heard that before. He goes on to say, thank you for raising our children while I was out getting into whatever devilment I could find. He attempts to smile. He says, baby, you never stopped looking good to me. But I didn't see your real beauty until it was too late. He says, as I reach out to grab his shaking hand, you know what? Of all the wrong I have ever done in my lifetime, you are most likely the closest I will ever get to God. So I want to ask you to forgive me. I look at him with tears building in my own eyes. I say, I forgive you. He gasped real hard to take his next breath. And then he was gone. He was gone.
Cut. Both takes were fantastic. Really, really good. I can't even decide.
I told her
Okay.
how many actresses
Tried this,
We
and-
did-
but
did-
she
just
has the perfect personality.
didn't get it.
But she got it perfect, right on 100%. I mean, she's good.
I have to agree. I
Okay.
have to agree.
I think
And we don't always agree on everything.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, but you're a really good actress.
Thank you.
Wow, the talent. Okay, do you think? I think we're done with the
I
takes.
think we're okay. I don't
I
think we
think
have
we're
to do
okay.
it again.
We're done with these takes. Only took 3 takes. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Take 6.
He said, my love, I'm afraid we have come to the end of our scene. The actual beginning started long, long ago on a stage far, far away. Our love had been an act, played out in life, a small scene that grew and grew as the music swelled to a climatic, dramatic crescendo. He says, it's not that I didn't love you. It's just that I couldn't love you the way you needed. I couldn't act out the role you wanted me to play. The love I did have for you was lost somewhere in the script you wrote for me. He goes on and says, what started out as an act of love between us became a beautiful, extremely passionate lie. As the man I loved exited my life, the curtains fell and my heart faded to black.
That one's a take. That one's a take.
Okay, gotcha.
That one's
You're
a
good.
take.
Can I see it?
Yeah.
I'm just
In 5, 4, 3, 2.
As an agnostic, I'm more than willing to admit that I don't know if there is a God. I don't know if there's a heaven. I'm not sure how humanity came to be. I'm not sure what happens once we leave this life. But the other day, I was talking to a coworker, and he was telling me about his only child, a son. He told of how he and his wife loved and had offered their son every opportunity possible. Yet some way, somehow, at the age of 14, the young man found his way to crystal meth, and the battle began. The young man was in and out of rehab. He became uncontrollable. And now, at the age of 23, that habit has gone from bad to worse. As my friend told me his story, I couldn't help but notice that his heart had been broken into a million pieces. I stood there and listened while this ex-Marine crumbled right in front of my face. And I began to understand. I began to understand why we dream of heaven. You see, in heaven, a drug is no longer needed to soothe the pain because we find peace within ourselves. We're no longer asked to just believe. We're no longer asked to just have faith because we can see the truth for ourselves. At this time, all the final judgments have been made. Mankind is at its best behavior. Humanity is now one. Ethnicity is seen just as it was intended to be. Nothing more than just a beautiful work of art. And we discover our reason for being. Later that same night, as I lie in bed, I could hear the young mother in the apartment above me pacing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, as she'd done many times in the past. In the background, I could hear our hungry children crying for attention. So she paced back and forth, back and forth. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, got out of my bed, went to my kitchen cupboard, threw some food into some bags. I went to my refrigerator and my freezer, and I threw some more food into the bags. And I took them upstairs. When I got to her apartment, I couldn't help but notice the eviction sign taped to her door. I knocked on the door, left the bags, and walked away. As I headed back downstairs, again, I began to understand why we dream of heaven. In heaven, hunger no longer exists. A home is never denied. Pain has no place. A disabled body is healed. Diseases are cured. We get to meet our guardian angels. We discover self-actualization. We discover self-acceptance and love. Love. Love is never questioned. Love is never denied. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if there is a God. As an agnostic, I'm more than willing to admit I don't know if there's a God. I don't know if there's a heaven. I'm not sure how humanity came to be. I'm not sure what happens once we leave this life. But I want you to know that I do understand, I truly do understand why we dream of heaven. I understand.
My favorite quote. My all-time favorite quote is taken from the Broadway play A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry. It says, "When you start measuring somebody, measure him right, child. Measure him right. Make sure you done taken into account what hills and valleys he come through before he got to wherever he is in life. Measure him right, child. Measure him right." Kola Anthony Scott II.
This is Mike James. I would like to thank you so very, very much for viewing our premiere episode of The Writer Spotlight. I also would like to thank our special guest, Presley Giles Jr., also known as Kola Anthony Scott II, his pen name, for joining us. If you would like to spotlight your published book or showcase your acting talents, please contact us at the online address listed below. We welcome your feedback. Thank you so very much, and see you next time on the Writer Spotlight.
Remember, life is an open book. You have the power in your hands by putting pen to paper when you exercise your right to write.